Early Childhood Education webinar. Today, we are working through the 5025 and the 5024. These are the most used elementary education tests, or early childhood education tests, I should say. And if you are in the webinar with me, which means you signed up and you actually are inside the webinar right now, please let me know that you can hear me and see me okay. If you're watching this in the future, everything should be fine. But we are live today on October 11th, 2025, 10 a.m. Eastern. That's what time it is right now. We are going to be giving away some books today in the webinar, and we are also going to be covering a lot of information. So let me know that you can hear me and see me. Looks like everybody's starting to come on into the webinar. Again, it is October 11th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Eastern. All right. And also let me know if this is your first webinar with me. A lot of you are repeaters. Many of you come back, and let me know if you've been here before or if this is your first time. I am going to introduce myself a little bit so you know that I do have the credentials to be teaching you this. Janice is in here saying, good morning. My test is at 1 p.m. today. Hoping for a good review. Awesome. I'm going to give you some think like a test maker strategies too. All right. First webinar. Awesome, guys. And you can hear me and see me. Perfect. All right. So very quickly, we're going over this test today, the 5025 and the 5024. They are very similar and also very different. So I'm going to be going over those differences. If you are taking another exam that's an early childhood education exam, it's not necessarily these two that I'm talking about today. That's totally fine, because most things that are covered on these exams are covered on all early childhood exams. You guys are pre-K through third teachers generally. And typically, if you want to teach pre-K through third in U.S. public schools, you have to take some sort of an early childhood exam, and it's going to test a few things like this. All right, first webinar, I have the 5025 KJ book with me. I missed it by 2 points last time. All right, Gianna, we've got you. There's some things I'm going to teach you today specifically about thinking like a test maker, not a test taker. So I sort of got that saying because I learned a lot about tests, specifically education exams, when I was a curriculum person working in the downtown office in my district. So I started off as a substitute teacher, like many of you. I wasn't sure if I wanted to teach. I got in there, loved it. A teacher had retired, and I was able to go in and get like a permanent substitute teaching job, which was really good for me. And I realized that I really liked teaching. I didn't think I would like it. I thought I wanted to do something else. I come from a whole family of educators, and I thought, I don't want to be an educator, but turns out that is what I was meant to do. I was a substitute teacher for about, 6 months. I started in the middle of the year. I write about that in my book, Teach, and how hard that was. And then I got certified. I took all the exams that many of you have to take, and I became a full-time certified teacher. I also coached cross country with my mentor. It was a really amazing experience. I taught for a few years and then was offered a position downtown writing curriculum, which was one of my most favorite jobs ever. If you ever have a chance to do it, I highly recommend. But it gave me a lot of insight on state standardized assessments, standards, test blueprints, specifications, and those types of lessons that I learned in that job, I now pass on to you and is the basis for what I talk about and what I write about all the time. Understanding assessment is really important. It is used for good and sometimes for not so good, but as educators, we're going to use it for good. And I'm going to show you how to master this today. And you could pass that down to your students because they take a lot of high stakes assessments too. Your high stakes are that, you want to keep your job, you want to get a job as a teacher, you want to, keep earning or whatever. That's high stakes. And for your students, sometimes their high stakes is if they get to go to the next grade level, right? That's very high stakes for students. I believe too high for a student, but I'm not in charge. And then once I was done with the curriculum master teacher downtown, I started getting my doctorate in educational leadership. I already had a master's. I forgot it. Got a master. I actually got 2 masters before then, and then started my doctorate in educational leadership. Got a job as an assistant principal where I was mainly in discipline, student services, whatever. And it was discipline. I processed a lot of referrals, but I also got the opportunity to work with the curriculum AP, and we worked together on professional development, which is what I do today, professional development for teachers. And I love it. I love helping teachers. I love teaching. So today I am teaching. I'm just teaching to you online. I love teaching. It's my favorite thing. I've written about, I don't know, like 35, 40 books on different exams. I also have a book called Teach, a survival guide for new educators, which is all about teaching. I'll show you where to get it in a minute. And, yeah, that's basically the story. And today I'm here to talk to you about the early childhood exam. It's one of many tests you will have to take. Typically, people take around 3 exams if they're trying to become a teacher, give or take, depending on what state you're in. So you will take the Praxis core or a basic skills exam. It's like an SAT or an ACT where you have math, reading, writing, and math, reading, and writing. Yes, math, reading, and writing. Am I missing something? No, that's it. And then your subject area exam, and this is considered a subject area exam because it is the subject you're teaching. So you're teaching pre-K through 3rd typically. So you're a math teacher, you're a reading teacher, you're a social studies teacher, you're a science teacher. Some of you may also be the specials teacher if there isn't one in the building. So you're teaching an array of subject areas. If you were becoming a middle school math teacher, your subject area exam would be middle school math, but you are pre-K through 3rd, so you're taking the early childhood, either the 5025, 5024, or a test like it, okay? And that's what we're going over today, all right? All right, looks like everybody's in here. You guys can hear me, see me. Perfect. Lots of first time. We've got some people who are veteran teachers as well. 20 years I see in here. Other people who have been in several years. And if you guys have answers to questions people have in the chat, and this is inside the webinar right now, feel free to answer them, veterans. And especially if you're a veteran preschool teacher or a pre-K through 3rd teacher, because I taught high school. Now, I have a lot of knowledge in this area, but I was a high school biology, English, and reading teacher. I taught everything from students who needed help passing the reading exam all the way up to students who were in the Cambridge program. I loved every second of it. I loved all my students, regardless of what their proficiency levels were. They all brought amazing things to the classroom. And I have a lot of knowledge in this area, but those of you teaching for 20 years in preschool or 3rd grade, you know way more than I do. I know the tests very well. You guys are in the practice, the actual pedagogy. So feel free to answer questions in there. We also have my colleague, Yana Crystal Bossy, and you'll see next to her name, it says a host. She's giving you an offer code inside the webinar so that you can get our materials if you don't already have them. And also, we're going to be giving away 3 books. I'm giving away 1 5025 and 2 5024s. Long story short, I had to order a ton of books because I was proofing them for a new publisher, and I have boxes and boxes of books. So we're giving them away over the next few months in these webinars. All right. Okay. So looks like we are good here. Teresa's a K-3 teacher, 6 years. Christine changed careers after 20 years, trying something new. All right, Christine, this brings me to something really, really good here. When we're talking about these exams, especially if you're a career changer, you're going to want to sort of abandon the way things used to be done. I find that a lot of people, when they're taking these tests for the first time, if they are not teachers already, they don't know the buzzwords and sort of the new practices in schools. So here are some things you want to avoid on the exam really quickly. Let's start with the bad words you should cross out in the answer choices. First of all, anything punitive. Students respond better to restorative practices. And I know a lot of people want to argue with me about that and say, no, kids need structure and all this. They do. It doesn't necessarily mean they need punitive measures. Restorative practices, focusing on positive behaviors, rewarding positive behaviors, hopefully intrinsically, but extrinsic rewards work. I was a teacher, a Jolly Rancher, a homework pass, they all work. But on these exams, we want to be looking for intrinsic motivation, learning for the sake of learning, taking ownership of our learning. We're teaching these young learners to have self-efficacy, to be empowered to want to learn, to want to read. This is very difficult. We're competing with a lot of devices and a lot of flashy things, but that is the job of the teacher. First and foremost, you are a reading teacher and a social emotional learning teacher as well. Those are the two main skills. Now, of course, we're learning science. Of course, we're learning math. Of course, we're learning social studies. But the foundation is reading. Teaching students how to read is so, so important. On these exams, you want to distinguish between the good practices and the not so good practices. So anything that calls a student out, embarrasses the student, and it might not say that in the answer choice, right? But if you get a negative vibe from an answer choice, it's probably not the right answer. I'm just going to say, unless you're looking for a not answer. You know how sometimes it says, which of the following is not the proper thing, then it might be the answer. But anything punitive, anything that singles somebody out. Another thing you want to pay attention to is anything that's sort of teaching to the middle, like where you're just teaching the basics and hoping everybody gets it. Differentiated instruction and meeting the needs of each and every student is the core of what they want you to do as teachers. Now, do we always have time for all this stuff? No. There's another thing I want you to think about when you are taking this exam, and we want to think about this as teachers as well. Look, there's not enough time. There's not enough money. You need 3 of you really to do the job that you need to do in the classroom. I know that 100%. Okay. And even administrators, I'm going to be doing an SLLA 6990 webinar next week. And you think, oh, administrators, they've got it so easy. No, administrators do the job of 10 people. I know, I was an AP. Everybody is pulled in a million directions. Okay. But on this exam, I want you to think like you have all the time in the world, all the money in the world, all the support in the world to do all the things that you know from research that are good for students. I find that sometimes people, when they're looking at the answers, they think that's too good to be true. If it's too good to be true, it is the answer. Okay. Don't say, oh, well, that's not how it goes in my school. We want too good to be true scenarios. That's our goal. Now, we can talk about funding. We can talk about the culture of education right now and how educators are being like gone after and everything else. And that's a conversation I'm happy to have. But on this exam, we need to be positive. We have all the time. We can differentiate based on every single student's needs and unique talents, all of those really good practices. And I encourage you to do that as much as you can. And if you fall short, no big deal. We all fall short, especially when you are in a classroom full of K through 6th grade or K through 3rd graders. To me, that's a scary situation. I taught basically 18-year-olds, 17, and a lot of people are afraid of those kids. The little ones scare me more than the big ones do. And some of you are people who are just engulfed in your elementary education. So it's no big deal to you. But whenever I would, sub for elementary or go down to an elementary school to kind of see what the teachers are doing there, first of all, I'm always in awe of elementary education teachers and pre-K teachers. You guys are so creative. You do the craziest things, especially with pre-K. Like, you anticipate that if you put kids in a group that they're going to start touching everything on the table. So you tell them, like, put your hands on your head. Everybody put their hands on their head. I saw a teacher do this one time. She anticipated every behavior move that these kids were going to make. And I thought it was so incredible. So you guys have your own skills and talents that you bring to the field. All right. So everybody teaches a different grade level, but here's the thing. We're all teachers and all students, regardless of ability, regardless of what language they speak, wherever they are in the learning process, they can think critically and they can work at their potential. And that's our job. So always pushing towards that. Okay. And if it's too good to be true, it's the answer. It's definitely the answer. Okay. So we have books and study guides and all of that for you. There is a 20% off coupon in the chat, and you will get emailed everything that we're talking about today. You're also going to get emailed some of the things that I talk about. Like if I reference a video, my colleague Yana, she will put it in the email. So don't worry about writing everything down. Everything I talk about today will be emailed to you once this webinar is over. If you're watching in the future, you already have that. All right. So we've talked about some of the bad words to stay away from and some of the overarching good words. One of the other things I want you to pay close attention to with these exams are the structures of each exam. All right. So we're talking about this exam here, the 5025 and the 5024. Let's go over the major differences. Okay. The biggest one, I guess you could say, is the 5024 has a constructed response section, which means you have to write essays for the 5024, this one, the orange book here, okay? For this one, you do not. This is all multiple choice for the 5025, okay? Now, some may say, well, I wish I didn't have a constructed response. I'm going to show you today how to do the constructed response. And even if you don't have a constructed response for your particular exam, I recommend staying for the constructed response because it will help you think critically about the multiple choice, right? So here is the structure of the exam. The 5024 is mainly childhood development, all the things that little kids go through as they progress through learning and reading and writing and all of that. And then at the end, there's a little bit about pedagogy. And pedagogy is like the actual teaching of subjects. So you will have some math, you will have some social studies, some reading, and some science, and maybe even some art and PE and all of that, because you teach all those, right? Typically, art and PE are specials, and you won't teach that, but some pre-K through third teachers do have to be the specials teacher also. For the 5025, it's all pedagogy. It's all reading and language arts, then it's math, then it's social studies and science, and then there's a section at the end that's combined for the arts, the fine arts and PE and health and all of that, okay? The biggest difference is this is a lot focused on childhood development, and this is all basically content that you have to know. Now, there is a section in the 5025 on childhood development, but it's in the social studies part because that is a social studies subject, right? Human development, it's psychology, it's human geography, stuff like that. So that is part of the social studies section. So you still have it in the 5025, but it doesn't have its own content category like the 5024 does. Okay. So that's the main part. Things you want to think about in the correct answer choices. Let's talk about good words here. And where do I get these good words? They come directly from the study companion. So let me know in the chat if you've already downloaded the study companion and you've had a look at it. And let me know in the chat if you have no idea what the study companion is. And if you have no idea, that's totally fine. Most people don't even know that these documents exist. So let me know in the chat if you know what the study companion is or if you don't know what the study companion is. And I'm going to go ahead and get into that. Every single big testing company, when they make an exam, they have to publish a document that goes over the entire test. And most test takers don't even read it. They don't even look at it. They buy a study guide. They go straight to the practice test. They do all the practice test questions. Then they make it another study guide and do all the practice test questions. And then they go and take their test and they hope for the best. And they think that, by doing practice tests over and over again, they're going to be successful on the exam, and they fall short. All right. So some people say yes, but I have a lot of people that say no. And somebody asked, Trinidad asked, is it free? It is free. Okay. Now I am not going to project it here because it is their proprietary information. All right. So here is the trick. What we want to do is download the blueprint and test specification. For Praxis, it's called the study companion. For Pearson, they call it the test blueprint and test specification. This is what I studied when I was a curriculum teacher. I studied the test specs, and a big testing company came in and taught us about this. What I want you to do after this is over, and we're actually going to send you a link to get it, Google the name of your test. And for the Praxis people, it is Praxis 5025 study companion. Praxis 5024, study companion. If you're taking another early childhood exam, put the name of your exam and the word blueprint, test blueprint, and specification. You might have to hunt around a bit. It's usually in a PDF. On Pearson, it's actually on their website under test prep materials or free test prep. It's free. They don't charge for it. And basically, it breaks it down into content categories. So you know the main content categories. And then it has the specific skills you need to know in order to do well. And for the Praxis, it has discussion questions, which are critical thinking questions around each content category. So I recommend you look at these documents. Now, these documents are like my Bible. I use them to write these books. So everything is aligned to the test specifications. And I reword them, obviously, because it's their material. We don't want to be like taking their test specs and putting it here. But I just reword them a little bit, but I make sure everything in the test specs is covered here. Now, inside those test specs are good words. Words like differentiation, words like alignment to the state standards, words like developmentally appropriate practices, DAP, right? I just saw somebody say, I'm taking the 5621. I'd stay here, Hazara. If you're taking the 5621, we're on a different test, but it is an early childhood exam, the PLT. So what we talk about here will still help you if you want to hang out today. But I just did a PLT last week, I think. So you can check that out in my webinars page on my website. Anyway, standards alignment, differentiation, routines and procedures usually tends to go with early childhood and elementary ed, but routines and procedures are good for everyone, including adults. Practice routines and procedures are such a lifesaver for any classroom. Let me know, veterans, if you agree. And those types of words, differentiations, alignment to the state standards, scaffolding instruction, understanding learners learn differently and through different methods. Multi-sensory, right? We want kids to be able to pick it up because we're talking about abstract concepts here. So we want to bring the abstract to the concrete, especially on those math questions, okay? I'm giving you an overview of everything right now. We're going to get specific, but I just want you to be thinking like all the good words, good practices. These are those too good to be true things, like everything is aligned, everyone is happy, there's a routine for everything. Every student has unique talents that they bring. Just because somebody might not speak English perfectly yet, they bring wonderful knowledge from wherever they are coming from to the classroom, right? A diverse classroom is an asset, not a hindrance. We want to be in our strength-based thinking, right? Diversity is an asset. Students who have disabilities are often referred to as exceptional student education. That's what we say in Florida, exceptional student education. Just always coming from that strengths-based thinking. We don't want to think in deficits. Oh, well, these kids can't learn because of this, or I teach this level of students, so they can't do that. I know sometimes we talk like that, and it's normal to just sort of, I don't want to shame anybody because we all make mistakes. I've said things in my videos that I go back and I look and I go, oh, that's deficit-based thinking. I just said something that was kind of, not strength-based. Try really hard to use that strengths-based thinking, and that will help you identify the correct answers and be a really great teacher regardless of grade level, all right? So those are the good words, and you will find them in the test specs, okay? In the test specification. I used to project it onto my screen, but it's their proprietary information. We are going to share a link with you to get the test specs. Here's the deal. If you Google your test name and the term test specification, blueprint, or study companion, depending on the test, go find the PDF in the Google search. There will be a bunch of people trying to sell you stuff, myself included. You're going to see all my study guides and stuff for sale. Bypass that for now. Go straight to the PDF. Now, for the newer PDFs from ETS, you actually won't find them just online. You have to go to a link where you put in your email. They want your email. They're giving you a free guide that's about 100 pages. They want your email. Just put in your email, then they'll email it to you for the newer exams. The older exams, like the 5024 and the 5025, these are online in the PDF, and you usually can grab them straight from a Google search. We're going to share the link to all the study companions on ETS. They're free. And I saw somebody here saying, is it study.com? No. Study.com is a company that contracts with ETS, and I highly recommend you use whatever free resources they give you there. ETS makes the exam, so whatever they have on their website is valuable. I believe my study guides are much more comprehensive, and they explain a lot more. However, very good company, not bad talking anybody, but mine are better. And they sort of put the free study companions and a little link down at the bottom corner. I was looking for it today and couldn't find it. So we're going to provide you with the link to go to ETS in the email. And if you're watching this in the future, you already have it in the email. So you can put in your email and click, get this. You can choose which study companion you want. Okay. Now I had, looks like Kristen Newton found it. Good. So all of that works very well. Okay. All right. So if you have to leave for any reason, this is recorded and you can watch it later. That is the overview. Let's hop over to my presentation now, so we can talk about the actual test itself. All right. So Praxis Early Childhood 5024 and 5025, they're both similar and different. And I'm just making sure on my thing. Okay, perfect. You can see everything you need to see here. All right, let's talk about the content very quickly, because I already talked about this. Notice the difference. So this is the 5024. Do you see how it starts off with childhood development? 25 questions, it's 17% of the exam. Observation, documentation, and assessment. Very, very important. We are using assessment to make decisions on this exam. Data-driven decision-making. If you see anything about using assessment to make decisions, it's most likely the correct answer. 19 questions, it's 13% of the exam. DAP, developmentally appropriate practices. Remember, that was part of my good words list. And I have more good words. Let's see. I have more good words. Like in the 5024, it's on page 189. It's a whole glossary of good terms that I pull from the test specs and put it in my books. But we're going to go over some of them today. That's 19 questions, 13% of the exam. All right. Then we have professionalism, family, and community. We're working with people. Sometimes we're working with psychologists. We're working with paraprofessionals. We're working with parents, community members, all of that. Now, this part here, content pedagogy and knowledge. This is the subject area stuff. This is going to be the math questions, the language arts questions and reading questions, the science and the social study. And notice, this has a lot of questions, but it's split up among all of those categories: math, language arts and reading, science, and social studies. So yes, it is the largest part of the exam, but it's actually broken up by all these other categories as well. You're going to have all those different types of content. That's 24% of the test. And then we have 3 constructed response questions, and those can come from any one of these. So the topic for your constructed response, for your essays, might come from childhood development, observation, documentation, developmentally appropriate practices, professionalism, content, knowledge, and pedagogy. Okay? So that's the structure. Now, do I want you to obsess over this to the point where it makes you crazy? No. But understanding the structure, especially those of you who have been 2 points off or whatever, and understanding some of those good words and thinking like a test maker and not a test taker, is going to really help you understand how to push yourself over that passing. If you miss by 2 points, it's 1 question away. You're 1 question away. So you'll get it. Don't worry. Keep trying. Don't give up. Now for the other one, the 5025, this is, like I said, content focused. So it's 120 questions, straight multiple choice. They call it selected response because some of the questions are choose all that apply. You'll have that on the 5024 as well. And with the choose all that apply, you have to get them all. You don't get partial credit for those. So let's say there are 3 correct out of the 5 answer choices. You have to hit all 3. Okay. People ask me that all the time. Oh, if it's a choose all that apply and I get 2, do I get partial credit? No, you get all of it or none of it. Okay. So language arts and literacy. This is going to be early childhood reading skills. 36 questions, the biggest part of the exam. Why? Well, reading is arguably, and I don't want to shade my mathematics teachers because math is also very important, but literacy is the number one thing. This is why children go to school, is to learn to read. You can't do science, you can't do social studies, and you can't do a lot of other things without literacy. All right. Now, mathematics is a different type of literacy, but it follows a lot of the same type of patterns that reading literacy does as well. So it is the next biggest, which is 30%, 25%. And then we get into social studies and science. Now, very quickly, we talked about this right here, childhood development and learning right here. It has its own content category on the 5024. On the 5025, it's embedded in the social studies. Because like I said before, the social studies is, psychology and development, human development is a social science subject. So you will have questions on the Constitution and the 3 branches of government alongside childhood development. So it's kind of interesting the way they break it up. And then, of course, science. Focus a lot on inquiry. Good words for the science section are inquiry, curiosity. And then you have this part here, health, physical education, creative and performing arts. And this is not a tiny bit. This is 20% at 17, or 20 questions at 17% of the exam. Okay. All right. So what does that actually look like in a test question? So here's what I've done here. I have, and let me just make sure we're looking good on the film. Good. Okay. So what I've done is I'm taking some questions from the free study guide that you got with this webinar. And if you don't have it, it's okay. Download it later. You're going to get an email. If you're watching on social media, there's a link in the description that'll take you to sign up and you'll get it in your email. Don't worry about it. You will get the free study guide. Focus on what I'm talking about here, just like in class. Focus on me, students. We'll talk about the actual worksheets and study guides in a second, okay? So this comes from 5024 child development, and this comes from the 5025 language arts. I'm trying to align them to whichever one you're taking, okay? Now, when we think about thinking like a test taker and somebody has their exam at 1:00 today, I want you to practice this before you go to your exam. I forget the name of the person who's going in today at 1:00. Go back into your study guide and quickly start here with the answer choices first. Eliminate bad answer choices and zero in on good answer choices. Assign Liam extra homework. Always the wrong answer. Always the wrong answer. Now, it doesn't mean it's a bad practice in real life. Homework is important. It's important for practice. But typically on the exams, they put homework with someone who is struggling. And if someone is struggling, we got to fix it in the classroom first with differentiation, targeted interventions, and things like that. So typically, homework is a bad word on the exam. Okay. Cross it off. B, incorporate activities such as Play-Doh manipulation, multisensory, using the hands, concrete, and beading into daily classroom activities. I like B. C, pair Liam with a peer who excels in fine motor tasks and ask them to complete the assignments together. Okay, be careful of partnering kids up. If you are enhancing a lesson with cooperative learning, then yes, it's good. But if you are putting the burden on another student to sort of do the interventions, and do we do this in real life when we don't have time? You have a kid in class who's a leader, and you have another kid who might be struggling, and you say, hey, why don't you guys buddy up? Hey, so-and-so, can you please just show them how you did that? I love the way you did that. Can you just take a second and show them? And you know what? That's a great way to differentiate too. But on this exam, you are in charge of that student's progress. So we don't want to put it on the peer. And in this case, we're saying find a peer who excels and ask them to complete the assignment together. It sounds like you're leaning on the other child to do the intervention. And it's typically not the right answer. All right. And then this one, reduce the number of fine motor activities to avoid frustration. Here's the deal. We always want to keep the standards high. This is code for lowering the standard. We don't want to do that. We want to keep the standard high, but provide scaffolds and supports so the student can meet that standard. Now, obviously, we talk a lot about that. It's easier said than done. But the point is, never choose an answer choice or a practice where you're like, I'm just going to make it easier. No, we want to keep pushing students toward critical thinking, toward higher order thinking. So D, I'm crossing out because the term reduce the number of fine motor activities, it could be appropriate in real life, but not on this exam. All right. Now, I continue to work backwards when I do this. And notice I already have B by just eliminating A, C, and D. Now, A might be obvious, a bad word or a bad answer choice, but C, these buddied up cooperative learning sometimes throw test takers off. So think like a test maker, not a test taker, and evaluate if you're leaning on the peer to do the work that the teacher should be doing. Let's continue to work backwards. Which of the following strategies would be most effective? That's another thing I want you to think about on this exam. People will often say, well, I look at the answer choices and they all look good to me because you're a brand new teacher and like, of course, homework, I had homework. Play-Doh sounds like fun. Peer interaction, I know that's important. Reducing the number to make it a little bit easier on the kid. Hey, I might do that as well in the classroom, right? But we're looking for the most effective, and manipulation, multisensory are good words on the exam. And we have fine motor skills is another key word here. And so beating and Play-Doh, holding a pencil, those are fine motor skills, those small little skills that they have in the fingers and the wrists. That's really important for new students. You see students trying to write. You see students trying to use those fine motor skills, and incorporating Play-Doh works. Now, I could move on right now and go to the next question, but let's just go ahead and read the whole thing just in case. Ms. Rivera notices that one of her students, Liam, struggles with fine motor skills and often avoids activities that require using scissors or writing. All right, so this is interesting. We have scissors, which is kind of complex for little kids, right? And writing is sort of complex. So let's switch it up a bit and let's work on those fine motor skills in a different way. And that's why B is the correct answer for number 1. All right. Let's have a look at number 3. Now, this is assessment. You will have assessment on both of the exams because remember, data-driven decision-making is a very, very important practice. Now, it might not say data-driven decision-making, but if you're using data to, or you're using, let's just say, test scores, you're looking at test scores and you're trying to disaggregate and figure out what the kids are low in, beautiful answer. If you are using observational data to determine where kids should go into their groups, you're using flexible grouping, that's data-driven. Think of the practices that where you use either formative data, which is observation, surveys, exit tickets, that qualitative data, or summative data. Those are typically test scores, criterion reference, things like that, to make decisions. That is what they're looking for on this exam. Now, I can't really work backwards on this one. Notice I have summative, norm reference, formative, and portfolio assessments, okay? So I can't do much here. I have to figure out which type of assessment would best suit Ms. Lopez's goal. Well, what's the goal? Let's have a look. Ms. Lopez notices that some kindergarten students struggle to recognize their letter sounds. She decides to use an assessment method that will help her monitor their progress. Ooh. Keyword in the question stem, monitor progress daily and adjust her teaching strategies accordingly. Which type of assessment would best suit this goal? Okay, keyword is progress monitor. Let me go through all of these in case you're brand new and you have no idea what these different types of assessments are. All right, summative, think sum. It happens at the end of learning and it measures outcomes. Measures outcomes. So, for example, you adopted a new reading program and you do a pre-test at the beginning of the year, and then maybe at midway or the end of the year, you test to see if it worked. And the summative assessment scores would show you that. The learning is done. It's over. Summative is like end of the year exam, midterms, end of the unit. Typically, I would always turn my summatives into formatives where I would allow students to take the test again, where we would go over skills and take it again. I always did that as a teacher. I don't think the learning ever needs to stop. And if a student wants to retake an exam and learn it, I say, yes, 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 please, please, please do that. But, sometimes they can't. A summative assessment could also be the end of the year state assessment. That's also called a criterion assessment. Okay. Criterion assessment is at the end of the year and it measures standards, right? So your third grade ELA assessment given by the state, your fifth grade math assessment given by the state, the civics assessment given by the state, that's a criterion assessment and it's a summative because it measures outcomes at the end of the year. Norm referenced is measuring students against other students. It's a comparison, typically the bell curve, right? Most of the students are in this area here. Then you have, significantly low performing students and significantly high performing students here. Depending on what year you give the exam, this bell curve could shift right or left. And it's about student to student comparison and typically comes in a percentile. You might hear something like, you're in the 85th percentile. That means you scored at or above 85% of all the students who took the exam. If you're in the 25th percentile, you only scored at or above 25% of the students who took the exam. It's a way to compare student performance. Now, formative assessment is my favorite, and it's what you do every single day. Formative assessments inform instruction, and if you see the terms monitor progress, that is the right assessment. Formative assessment is happening every single day. You're observing your students. You're deciding quickly on the fly, this kid's having trouble with this. Let me intervene. And it might be you jump in and you say, hey, let's go over this really quickly. That's a data-driven decision. You saw the data. An observation is data collection. You see he's struggling or she's struggling and you swoop in and you fix it. Or you might have done a quiz, right? And you see 75% of the kids did not get question 3 correct. Is it their fault or your fault? I mean, it's really nobody's fault, but whose responsibility is it? If 75% of the kids didn't get it, that's on me. I got to reteach it, right? So that informed my instruction. That's formative. It could be in the form of a quiz, and it can be quantitative, meaning numbers, but a lot of times it's qualitative. Observations, exit tickets, conversations. Those types of things help inform instruction and help you do data-driven decisions. And of course, portfolio is a collection of work over time. All right. So writing portfolio, math portfolio, reading portfolio, it's not everything the kid does. It's usually the final draft of like their writing, maybe over the last 3 weeks or something. There are 3 different assignments in there or whatever. A portfolio can be of anything. An art portfolio can be anything, right? In this case, C is the correct answer because we have monitor progress. And that's going to take me right to formative assessment. Formative assessment informs instruction and it helps you to monitor progress and make decisions in real time. All right. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to do a book giveaway. All right. Now, this is in the 5024, this would be considered content and pedagogy. And in the 5025, this would be considered language arts. We're talking about reading. And when we're talking about reading, we're talking about the foundational skills of reading for our pre-K through third kids, right? So they're just learning to read. And one of the first skills they will use is phonemic awareness. Okay. So this question stem is quite short. So I don't need to work backwards here. It's not a huge scenario question. Right away, the term phonemic awareness stands out. So we have A, form compound words and combine word parts. B, spell accurately and decode unfamiliar words. C, pronounce individual sounds in words. And D, differentiate between homonyms and spell them accurately. All right. Now, let's say you're a brand new teacher and you have no idea what phonemic awareness is. The first thing I'm going to tell you is go buy the study guide and really work on phonemic and phonological awareness and the process of reading. I have tons of videos on it. It's all over my online courses and my study guides. My reading content, my reading program is my number one. Everybody likes it because I break these down. These are lots of complex words, okay? Phonemic awareness is about sounds only. You do not have to see the word to do phonemic awareness. So C is my answer. Pronounce individual sounds. Phonemic awareness is individual sounds in words. Phonological awareness are bigger sounds in words. So for example, in the word track, if I were doing phonemic awareness, I would go ak. 4 sounds, individual sounds. If I was doing phonological awareness, I might break this word up by onset and rhyme. Onset is the first consonant sound or consonant cluster sound, ter, and the rhyme is the vowel, closing vowel and consonant sound, ak. Notice I'm writing the word for you right now because I'm trying to explain what onset and rhyme is. But if you were doing this in the classroom, you would not be using an actual word. You'd be doing it just by sounds. When I was getting my reading endorsement, the reading coach said you can do phonological awareness and phonemic awareness in the dark. You can close your eyes and do it. Notice that A, B, and D all have to do with spelling and words. Spell, words, words. A, B, and D are all phonics. Phonics has to do with decoding words. Knowing that this T and this R together go ter. Knowing that this P and this H together make a f sound, right? Knowing that if I have the word make and I have this A here and this K, this E is silent. These are all codes inside of words, and you have to see the word to do it. Another think like a test maker strategy here, for those of you taking the test today, this is also a 3-to-1. There are 3 that are similar here and 1 that is different. And the one that is different stands out. It's talking about sounds only. This is forming compound words. This is spelling. This is spelling. Right away, I could cross off B and D because it has spell and spell. And we're looking for one answer choice here. Now, if it said choose all that apply, we can't use that strategy. But when you're looking for one answer choice and you see a 3-to-1, do it. Okay. Let me see. What do we got here? Let's keep moving. Let's do math content really quickly. Now, again, this is going to be in the 5025 math section, but for the 5024, it's going to be in the content and pedagogy, but specific to the math part of that. All right. Now, right away, I see that I have a die here. A teacher is using dice to help students recognize numbers. She rolls 1 die and the students immediately say 3. What skill are the students and teacher working on? All right. This is subitizing. When you can automatically look at something and see 5 or 3 or 2, that's a really important math skill. All right. Sometimes we use base 10 blocks, clusters of things together. Being able to recognize those right away is very, very important. Now, let's talk about the other stuff. What's transitivity? Transitivity is an important math skill, and it actually goes all the way up into very complex math skills later in life. But transitivity is like, okay, if I know that 5 is greater than 3 and 3 is greater than 1, then 5 is greater than 1, right? We know that those transfer over to other things, right? So as 5 is greater than 3 and 3 is greater than 1, then 5 is also greater than 1, right? So these are just things, understanding numbers and figuring them out. Patterns, of course, students need to understand, you'll show a pattern and you ask the student, what's the next thing that would come up, right? So you might have a triangle, a heart, a triangle. I'm trying to do this now. Heart, a triangle, a heart, a triangle, heart. See, maybe you show them that much and you ask, what's the next one after this heart here? Well, for this heart, it would be another triangle, right? So that one's a hard one. I actually might have even messed that up. I might not have even done that correctly, but you're teaching students patterns, which is very important. And then decomposition is, decomposition of numbers. So sorry, let me erase this a little bit faster here. All right, let's try this. So it might be something where you know that 5 is actually made up of 2 and 3, right? So something simple like that. Or it could be something like 140, where you have 100, you have 40, and then you have 0. You might be doing it in terms of like place value or something like that. Lots of different ways to do decomposition and transitivity in higher levels. But in this case, if you see something like this, it's subitizing, being able to recognize those groups of dots or blocks or whatever right away. Okay. All right, let's just keep going here and I'll give away books in a second. All right, so this one is going to be early childhood science classroom. This is going to be embedded in the social studies. I know that it's a science classroom. It may say social studies classroom, science classroom, but this is about early childhood development. And what do we want the students to do? We want them to have curiosity and inquiry in science and in life. Now you might say, well, diligence and perseverance is good. Interest and happiness is good. Yes, it is. But curiosity and inquiry for the little ones is most important. They ask questions like, why does that happen? I wonder if that would happen if I did that. They're always doing that. If you watch little kids, they do the coolest things. I have a niece, my daughter's 16 now, but I have a niece who is going to be 6 soon. And I'm watching her all the time. And she's so funny because I'm out of that stage now. My daughter is older and I don't teach anymore in the schools. So I don't see it all the time. And when I see her doing all these typical little things, she's so curious. It just makes me so happy. Of course, diligence and perseverance is important. Skepticism and cynicism, I would say, don't teach kids to be cynics. You know, they have enough time in their life to become that later. Interest and happiness is good, but curiosity and inquiry, that's asking questions. And asking questions in the science classroom or in the social studies classroom or in any classroom is so, so important. So this is one of those where you might be like, yeah, B is out, but A, C, and D are all good. If you see curiosity and inquiry, it is most likely the best answer when it comes to childhood development and science. It could be in either place, okay? And the last one until we get into the constructed response here, I have self-pacing. That's not really a thing. Self-esteem, self-actualization, and self-efficacy. B, C, and D are all part of the human experience, especially in pre-K through 3rd grade. So let's keep working backwards. They understand that when they work together to learn and clean up, they will have a positive experience in the classroom. Okay. Now you might be torn between self-esteem because self-esteem can lead to positive experiences, but this is actually self-efficacy. I can do it. I can work together. I can clean up. They also clean up after the activity. This is beyond, this is not self-esteem. Self-esteem is feeling good about yourself. Self-efficacy is that you know you can do something. And when we teach students to work together, that they'll be even more successful. That's very, very important. Self-pacing is like individual work and you're pacing yourself. It's kind of a nonsense answer, and you will see some nonsense answers on the exam. Self-esteem, again, is feeling good about yourself and understanding that you have value. And self-actualization is what we're all working towards, and it's a little bit too much for a pre-K through 3rd kid, right? Self-actualization, if we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is way up at the top. And you know, there are days where we have it as adults and there are days we don't. It's kind of like, what does it all mean? What am I here to do? What do my talents bring to the world? You don't have that until you've learned a lot about yourself and others. And I argue sometimes we fall in and out of that. Sometimes I feel very self-actualized, and other days I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Right? We all have that. You know, 1st graders are probably not there yet. So I would cross that off, and self-esteem could be the distractor here, the almost correct answer, but self-efficacy is here. Remember, our Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have the basic needs at the bottom, shelter, food, all of that. We move up, love and belonging, self-esteem, and then, of course, self-actualization is at the top, all right? All of that is in the book. Both books, okay? All right, so we are on the constructed response, but first, I want to stop sharing and just go through here, and I want to give away some books. So I'm going to call out a name. I'm going to give away 3 books right now. We're going to do all 3 right now. So if you're here in the webinar, you can get one of these books. If you already bought the book and you get it, no big deal. Give it to one of your friends, share it, you know, let people know. These are my study guides. I'm giving them away. Let's just look and see if anybody has any questions. Looks like you're all participating. People love the explanations. Formative isn't formal. No, no, no. Very good. Formative assessment is actually informal. I like to say it informs instruction. In my opinion, it is the most powerful assessment because you're doing it in the moment and you're making decisions in the moment. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Looks like you guys are helping each other. I love it. All right. So let's go into the giveaway. Let me go over here and see who we got. All right. For the first one, I have Kristen Luton. You are getting a 5025 book. Kristen Luton, let me know if you are here and in the chat. Then we have Sheila Jackson. Sheila Jackson, you are getting a 5024. And then Whitney Nowakowski. I think I said it right. Let me know, Whitney, if I said it right. Whitney Nowakowski. All right. Kristen, you are getting the 5025. You are here. Perfect. And then we had, Sheila Jackson for the 5024 and Whitney Nowakowski 5024 because I had 5024 books and one 5025. Let me know if you are here. So we've got Whitney, you're here. Are they both here? Everybody's going so quickly. Let's see. Whitney. Who else did I call? Let's see. I called Sheila Jackson. Are you here, Sheila? Let me know. Oh, you're here. Sheila Jackson, you're here too. All right, everybody's here. You all get your books. Okay, perfect. Now, before we go to the constructed response, and remember, I want you to stay, even if you're taking the 5025 and you're like, I don't have a constructed response. Well, guess what? This is going to help you with the multiple choice, okay? Perfect. Okay, all three are here. Awesome, guys. You'll get it from us in the next couple of days. I send it media mail because it's cheaper to do that. So it's like 3 or 4 days and you'll get it. I'll send it out to Monday morning, okay? So let me just show you really quickly a couple of things you can do to get better, of course. We have programs. And in the chat and in the email coming up, if you're watching in the future, you already have it. You're getting a 20% off. We have the Praxis Early Childhood. Right now, physical copies are on Amazon. So if you click that button on the website, you will see physical copies. We have tons of 5-star reviews on this book. I've actually thought about revising this book just for a second edition later. It's not going to happen overnight. But people love this book. It's working really well for people. So I will most likely do a second edition soon, but this has helped lots and lots of people pass. One thing I just want to bring to your attention, don't buy a used one. It's going to have writing in it. I get emails all the time. I bought a used book. It's got writing. It's like, Amazon is in charge of this. If you have any issues, let me know. But it through our email, but it's through Amazon. Okay. We're hoping to sell physical books on our website soon. We're working with publishers now to get that done. That's why I have all these extra books here that I'm trying to give away. It's a whole story. But anyways, so if you want a physical copy on Amazon, and I cannot do discounts on Amazon, I apologize, but I have to unpublish the book, change the price, and republish it. And KDP is very picky and they could not approve the book. And I don't want that. So if you want a physical book, you got to get it on Amazon. But we also have the digital download here in a PDF. And some of you in the chat, you already have the digital download. We also have an online course, which has everything. Let me show you where that is. 5025. Where are you? There you are. This has everything and it comes with the digital study guide. It looks like this. So you can see over here, all down the left-hand side is your menu. And then we go through everything. I go through all of the things that you need to do. The world in spatial terms, physical science, life science, earth science. You have a lot of pedagogy. I don't have an online course for the 5024 yet. I hope to soon. I just have the study guide and I have some videos online. Okay. Now, beyond that, we have our free stuff. Let me go back to here. We have our free webinar. I saw somebody in here for PLT. I just did PLT last week. Definitely check out this part of my website, the free webinars tab, because it comes with free study guides and an 1.5-hour lesson on this stuff. So some people use just the free stuff. So go in there, get the free stuff. And of course, I have my YouTube channel with tons of free videos and all of that. All right. Now let's go back to our constructed response. All right. So constructed response, there are 3. And again, if you're here for 5025, stay. It's going to help you, I promise. The 5024 has 3 constructed responses. Now listen, you're not here to write the next rendition of War and Peace, okay? You need to meet the task and you write just about that. You really don't need an intro and you really don't need a conclusion, okay? You just need to do the task. Let me show you what I mean. And I want you to work backwards on this as well. Let me show you what I mean. And again, if you're here, you're going to get this constructed response practice in the email, the follow-up email, okay? All right, so here we are. Let's just say this is it. Now, it could come with a piece of data. There could be some fluency data in here. It could be behavior data as well. It doesn't matter. The first thing I want you to do is go straight to this task. Don't get caught up in the scenario and then go to the task. Let's figure out what we are responsible for first. And this goes for any constructed response. There are PE exams that have a constructed response. The PLT has a constructed response. The some elementary education exams, the reading exams, they have constructed responses. So don't start here. No. We're going to start here, just like we did with the answer choices. First thing we have to do is analyze the situation and identify specific needs of Emma. Okay, so we need to figure out what's going on with Emma. Propose 2 research-based strategies you could implement to help Emma transition between activities, and justify why these strategies are effective and how they will support Emma's social emotional development. This is classic. They want you to propose 2 research-based strategies and then say why those are good. This justification or the rationale for doing whatever strategy you are doing is a really good way to end your paragraph. It's a perfect end of paragraph sentence. This is helpful because blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show you in a second. All right. So we have to figure out what Emma needs. We have to propose 2 research-based strategies. And the research-based strategies are going to be all of those things like differentiation, modeling, multisensory supports, pictures, explicit instruction, systematic instruction. These are all things that are all over the study guide. They're in the good words section of the study guide. You don't want, you're so good at doing the good words in the multiple choice, and then you get to the constructed response and you go blank. Use those good words in your constructed response because it shows the grader. This person knows what she's talking about. This guy knows how to be a pre-K through 3rd kindergarten teacher. So use those good words again in here. And once you are keen into those, or keyed in, I should say, it's going to come to you much easier. All right. So let's go ahead. Now that I know what I'm expected to do, and what I'm going to probably do is divide this into, as you can see here, 3 paragraphs. I've got what's going on with Emma, strategy 1 and strategy 2. Why do I do that? Because it checks the boxes and it shows my grader that I know what I'm talking about. All right, let's see what's going on with Emma. Ms. Jones is a pre-K teacher, and one of her students, Emma, has difficulty transitioning between activities. During free play, Emma often refuses to stop what she is doing and becomes upset when it's time to move on to the next scheduled activity. This behavior is causing her to miss important learning opportunities and disrupts the rest of the class. And this is a pretty normal thing that happens. You got the one kid who doesn't want to stop playing. This used to be me. I had ADD, ADHD. I had a hard time sitting still. I had a hard time listening. If I were if I were a student today, I'd probably be have an IEP for behavior. Maybe, I don't know if I would have qualified for an IEP, but I definitely had it. And I was in trouble all the time, always in the principal's office. So what's Emma's going on here? One of the things is that I like about this is that the teacher has observed the behavior already. One thing you can put in your writing is to observe the behavior first. That is a research-based strategy. Don't be reactive. Be proactive. And you can see the teacher is already being proactive because she has determined during free play this is happening. All right, so think about it for a second. What would you do? I think Emma might be overwhelmed by changing from free time to academics, perhaps, or transitions. And instead of saying I'm overwhelmed and I don't like that, Emma is acting out, which is what all of us do when we're overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed the other day and I totally blew my top. It's what happens to humans, not just little kids, right? They're just little human beings. So we want to say, all right, she's overwhelmed. Maybe she needs some help with transitioning. Maybe she needs a countdown clock. Maybe she needs some visual cues, right? Maybe just saying, all right, everybody, it's time for math, pack up, it's too jolting for some, okay? So I would probably do some visual cues. Maybe there's something in Emma's folder or in all the kids' folders. This is a good differentiation for all the students, where there is a picture of transitioning from free time to math block or whatever the next thing is, okay? Also, perhaps there's a checklist on the board. Maybe that's your visual cue. And there's a countdown. So, hey, everybody, we got about 5 minutes left for playtime. I want you to be ready to make your transition, okay? And then maybe we got 3 minutes left, everybody. Be ready to transition. Maybe you even walk over to Emma and say, Emma, is there anything I can help you with? We're going to be transitioning in about a minute or 2 minutes. Easing Emma into it might help her to not feel so overwhelmed, all right? So let's see what I said here. All right, so let's analyze the situation. Emma is struggling with transitioning between activities, which is a common challenge for young children who may have difficulty with routine changes or are highly focused on their current tasks. Her difficulty in transitioning suggests a need for support in developing self-regulation and flexibility in daily routines. Okay, those are some key words. Self-regulation is a good word on this exam. It's all over the test specifications, and I have it in the back of my book because students need to learn how to act in class. That's what we teach them, right? Now you may say, this only has 2 sentences here. It's not a full paragraph. Yeah, it says nothing in the specs about how many sentences a paragraph should be. I like this, even doing the headings here, because analysis of the situation checks this bullet. Analyze the situation and identify the needs of Emma. Well, did I do that here? Her difficulty transition suggests a need for support in developing self-regulation. I did it. All there. Check. The first box is checked. Let's have a look at the next one. I need my first strategy, and I like to put the rationale at the bottom to round out this paragraph. The rationale or the justification usually goes here. It's a nice way to end the paragraph. Let's go. One effective strategy to help Emma is implementing a visual schedule in the classroom. So notice I even say one effective strategy. I'm cueing the grader of my constructed response that I'm about to tell you the thing you're asking me to tell you. It's right here, big green light on it, okay? So I say implementing a visual schedule in the classroom. Now I'm going to get a little bit specific and define it. Visual schedules give children clear pictorial representation of the daily routine, helping them anticipate transitions. Now I'm getting even more specific. This is a very important thing to do. For example, part of the rubric of this, of what they use to grade you on here, is specificity, using specific examples. When you say, for example, that helps the grader to go, oh, she's getting specific, or he's going to use a specific example. Using images or symbols that represent free play, circle time, snack time, and other activities, Emma can visually see what comes next. All right. And now here comes the justification. Research has shown that visual schedules are beneficial for young children, especially those who experience anxiety or resistance to transition. And here's an even more justifiable thing. They create a predictable environment which reduces stress and improves behavior during transitions. Check, check, check. I named the strategy. I got specific on that strategy by first defining it and then getting even more granular by talking about free play, circle time, snack time. I really get into it and show you. I don't tell you, I show you what's going on. And then at the end, I have this nice little area at the end where I round it out. Now, I have a degree, a doctorate in educational leadership. All of these words are easy for me. Do you have to have big words in order to get a 3 on this? No, you do not. You can use basic language. You just have to make sure that you name a strategy, that you get specific on why it's going to help, and then justify it. And research has shown, have I recently read any research on this? Well, yes, I have, because I'm always building study guides. So I'm reading the research, right? But you may not. But the term research shows, or the research has shown, indicates it's a research-based strategy. And 9 times out of 10, if you're using something from a textbook or my book, if you're using it from my book, it is a research-based strategy. Now, visual transitions, explicit instruction, modeling. You might have spaced out and said, oh, I forgot about visual cues. Okay, how about modeling the behavior? That's a research-based strategy. So talk specifically about modeling. And maybe the justification is modeling helps the student see an example. And then the student can mimic that. That's what modeling does. So that would work as well. Let's go to the second strategy. Use of transition cues and warnings. A second strategy involves providing verbal and nonverbal transition cues or warnings before change happens. Now, cues, verbal and nonverbal cues, are on the test specifications as well, in that little area where it talks about everything you need to know, right? So cues and warnings are there. Here we go. For instance, giving Emma a 5-minute warning before ending playtime can prepare her for the upcoming shift. Transition songs, I'm getting even more specific. Chimes or hand signals can also act as consistent cues to signal the need. Transition warnings give her time, here comes the rationale, to finish her work, mentally shift to the next activity, and feel more in control. If she's just finishing something up and you're like, all right, everybody, let's go, we're changing. And most of you don't do that, but this is a way to show transition and warnings and countdown clocks or whatever you decide. This is going to help with self-regulation. Did I meet all of these bullets? Yes, I did. Check, check, check. And it's 3 paragraphs. And let me tell you, you don't have to have all of this here. I went a little above and beyond with mine, right? I want to show you like a really, really good one. But if you left something out, if you forgot something, it's okay. You basically want to name the strategy, be specific in the strategy, and do the rationale. Perhaps you only have 3 sentences in this paragraph and 3 sentences here. That's totally fine. There is no, you have to have 5 sentences per paragraph. You have to have at least 5 paragraphs for your essay. No, you still have 2 more to write. This is just the first one. So you got to learn to practice. And I have tons of examples in all my books. I have tons of prompts for you to use. Another thing you can do is put the prompt into ChatGPT, write it yourself, because you're not going to have ChatGPT on the exam, and then have ChatGPT grade it. And that would really help you as well. All right, let me stop sharing here. A feelings chart. Also having a feelings chart for her to point to. Yeah, I love those. I love it when the kids go to class and they can point if they want a high five or a hug or something like that. Makes the kids feel like they're in control, because they are so out of control about like their environment, right? They don't get to choose all the things. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Anything else? Can you print out the digital copy? Nadia, yes, you can print out the digital copy, but I don't recommend, because it's like going to use up all your ink. If you want the physical copy, just buy it from Amazon. Soon we will be able to provide you with physical copies from the website, but we're going through a publisher. It's a whole thing. It takes a lot of time. All right. I've got some other questions here. Let's see. All right. So people say they can't hear me, but you just have to refresh. All right. So any other questions you have, let me know. Let me show you where you can get some more free resources. So for sure, if you're here late, you can always go to my webinars page. Lots of webinars here. Foundations of Reading I just did the other week, PLT, all of that. I also have a very robust YouTube channel with playlists, and we've got podcasts. These are great just to throw in your headphones and go and listen. Of course, I'm on TikTok. I love TikTok, you guys. This is micro learning. I share different strategies here, and it's so much fun. I really like doing TikTok tutorials and all of that. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Of course, we have our paid resources. This is what the online course looks like. Of course, you get the full study guide to download and save to your computer, but it also comes with, the videos. If you like my videos and you like the way I go over things, I have videos for every single subject area. I even have a 2-hour webinar here. This one's an old webinar for the 5025, but it's a good one. I put it in there for you. It's from a long time ago. You'll see I have short hair in these videos. It was from a few years ago. But all of this has all of my most recent reading, writing, all of that. You'll love it. If you just want a study guide, you can go to our study guide section here. My mouse is a little annoying. Let's see. Early childhood. We have the 5025, 5024. If you want physical copy, click here, go to Amazon. And again, we've got a lot of great feedback on the 5024 as well. This is a newer book. And I'm trying to think what else. The winners of our webinar, you will get your stuff here soon in the next couple of days. I really appreciate you guys coming. Hopefully, I forget who was taking the test at 1:00. I really hope that you do well. And listen, try not to get too, if you don't pass this test the first time, you're normal. Lots of people don't pass the first time. It's okay. You can't just expect, especially if you're a brand new teacher, there's so much nuance, so many acronyms, so many things about education that don't line up to the way we were taught. I know there's a career changer in here in the chat, someone who had been doing something else for 20 years. You haven't thought about, I'll guarantee you, they're going to ask you geography questions in this test that you haven't thought about in 30 years. Okay. They're going to ask you questions about civics that you haven't thought about in 30 years, perhaps, maybe more so now because of everything going on. But, there are math questions that you may be like, oh my gosh, I have not thought about that. Please get a guide. Use my guide, preferably. Use those test specifications. Remember, download those test specs. Really look at what you are expected to do. And that's really, really going to help you. Okay. All right. So it looks like people are happy. Thank you so much. I've been pre-K so nervous about the higher grade stuff. Oh, it's okay. It's just different. They're all the same, really. It's just different content areas. But teaching reading to young learners is a very important job. So highly recommend. All right, everybody, listen, it's Saturday. Go relax. You did enough studying today. Be on the lookout for that email with all of the resources we're going to send you and the constructed response that I went over today. If you need us, you can email us at info@kathleenjasper.com. And we'll help you. I have people on staff almost 24 hours a day. So if you email us, we will get back to you. Comments on Facebook, we try to get back to you. Direct messages, we have somebody monitoring that as well. So we really try to get that customer service to you guys the best in the biz. And if you have any questions and you want me to film something, throw it in the email because I'm always looking for things to film. All right. Everybody, good luck on your exam. Go easy on yourself. Enjoy it. And thank you for being a teacher. It's not an easy job, especially right now. And I really appreciate you. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.